They say every river begins with a single drop. And in that drop lives a story of patience, of change, of how love can flow until it's taken for granted. I once had a son, and I gave him everything my hands could build. I gave him the roof that kept the storms away, the bread that filled his hunger, and the hope that he would one day walk stronger than I ever did. But rivers don't always flow the way you dream. Sometimes, they turn against the land that shaped them. One morning, I woke to find my river had run dry. My son had taken all the waters of my life, every dollar, every hour, every piece of me, and carried them far away. People say betrayal is a wound. But I tell you this, betrayal is a drought. It leaves the soul cracked, the heart silent, and the ground of love waiting for rain. That was the morning everything disappeared. And that was the morning I began to remember what kind of man I truly was. Muha. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains, the kind of gentle light that used to make me smile. The house was quiet, too quiet. No laughter, no sound of footsteps. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the slow, steady beat of time. I reached for my coffee, still warm, the aroma filling the kitchen. It was supposed to be an ordinary day. I had plans, groceries, bills, maybe a call to my son later that evening. I even smiled, thinking about how long it had been since we'd talked properly. I opened my phone. Notifications, messages, a few work emails. And then, something strange. A text alert. Bank withdrawal $4,950. Another one. 3,200. And another. My thumb froze above the screen. One by one, the alerts kept coming, like the sound of nails being hammered into a coffin. I scrolled faster, my heart pounding louder than the ticking clock on the wall. And then it hit me. Every cent, every dollar I had spent 30 years saving, gone. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Maybe a system error, maybe a scam. I called the bank, my voice trembling, my throat dry. But the woman on the phone was calm, her tone rehearsed. The kind of calm that tells you she's said this 100 times before. Yes, sir, she said softly. The account was accessed yesterday afternoon. By someone authorized. Your son. My son. For a few seconds, I didn't even breathe. The sound in the room disappeared. The clock, the birds, everything. Just silence. My son, the boy I carried on my shoulders. The one who used to hold my hand crossing the street, who promised me one day he'd take care of me. I sat down at the table. My coffee had gone cold. I opened our old messages. The last one from him was months ago. Just 2 words. Busy, Dad. My heart felt heavy, not from anger, but from the weight of something breaking inside me. I checked my messages again. That's when I saw it. One new text. From him, Dad, I need to live my own life. Don't look for me. That was it. No explanation. No apology. Just a goodbye disguised as freedom. I stared at the words until they blurred into the screen. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't feel them anymore. My chest hurt, but I didn't know if it was from anger or grief. I laughed quietly, not out of humor, but disbelief, because the world has a cruel sense of irony. I worked my whole life so he wouldn't have to struggle. Every overtime shift, every sleepless night, every dream I postponed, all for him. And now, he took it all, not even looking back. People say betrayal feels like a knife in your back. But they're wrong. It's quieter than that. It's the silence after you whisper someone's name and realize they're gone. It's the sound of your heartbeat when you understand that love doesn't always mean loyalty. I sat there for hours, maybe minutes. I couldn't tell anymore. The clock ticked. The sunlight faded, and I just stayed. And in that silence, I whispered to no one. He didn't just steal my money. He stole the reason I was still trying. But then, something inside me shifted. Not rage, not hate. Just a strange, still calm. I took a deep breath, stood up, and looked out the window. The world was still there. The same sky, the same wind, as if nothing had changed. But for me, everything had. And as I turned off my phone, I whispered to myself, "All right, son, live your own life." 3 days passed. The house had never felt so big. Or so empty. I thought the anger would fade. But instead, it settled in the corners of my chest. Quiet, heavy, like dust you can't wipe away. I didn't tell anyone what happened. What would I even say? My son robbed me. No. Parents don't say things like that. We swallow our shame and pretend it doesn't hurt. I kept going through the motions. Making coffee, watering the plants, checking the mailbox even though I knew there was nothing inside. But that morning, my phone buzzed. A notification from social media. I opened it without thinking, and froze. There he was. My son, standing under a sky so blue, it didn't even look real. His arms around his wife. Champagne in hand, laughing. God, that laugh. The one I hadn't heard in years. And beside them, her mother. A woman I'd only met once. The one who looked at me like I was an old man, past his purpose. In the photo, she was wearing sunglasses, holding a glass of wine, and in the caption, she wrote, "Finally, my daughter and her husband can live the life they deserve." The life they deserve. My chest tightened. I zoomed in on the photo. The hotel logo behind them. 5 stars. The diamond bracelet on her wrist. The one I'd seen my son gift her last Christmas. Paid with my money. I scrolled down. More photos. Beaches. Dinners. New cars. Smiles. Every image was like another knife. And every like felt like salt in the wound. People commenting, "You two look amazing. What a beautiful life. So happy for you both." And me? I was just a ghost scrolling through the proof that my love had turned into their luxury. I set the phone down. My hands were shaking, but my eyes dry. I couldn't even cry anymore, because something inside me had already died. I walked to the kitchen, sat at the same table where I used to teach him how to count coins, and whispered to the air, "So this is happiness, huh? This is what my son thinks it means to live his own life." I looked around my small, quiet home. The same walls I built with my bare hands. The same roof that kept him dry through storms. And I realized, maybe I hadn't lost everything. Maybe I just lost the illusion. That night, I went to bed early. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those photos. That smile. The kind that said, "You'll never matter again." And maybe he was right. Maybe I was just an old man with no one left to need him. But then, in that darkness, a thought came. Quiet, steady, sharp. What if I stopped being the man everyone could walk over? What if I stopped playing the fool who kept forgiving? Because love, when betrayed, can turn into something stronger than hate. It can turn into purpose. So I smiled for the first time in days. Not because I was happy, but because I finally understood something. He thought he'd taken everything from me. But the truth, he had only taken what I let him see. The real money, the real life savings, the part of me he thought was weak. That was somewhere else, hidden, safe, and now I knew exactly what I had to do. "Enjoy your paradise, son," I whispered, "because when you come back, it won't be here waiting for you." Revenge. People think it's loud, dramatic, filled with shouting and fire. But the truth? Real revenge is quiet. It begins in the stillness after your heart breaks. That night, I sat alone in my small living room. No lights, no music, just the faint hum of the rain tapping against the glass. I stared at the old photo on the shelf. Me, my wife, and my son. He couldn't have been more than 8. His smile back then was real, pure, innocent, full of trust. I whispered to that photo, "When did you stop being that boy, huh?" And that's when the plan began. Not a plan for anger, but for understanding, for balance. You see, months before he took the money, I had already moved my real savings, everything I'd earned from years of quiet work, into an account under a different name. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I'd seen the way he was changing, the way his wife looked at him. Like a prize she'd won, not a person she loved. I remember one night, before all this happened, she smiled at me and said, "You've done well, Dad. Maybe it's time to let the younger generation enjoy it." That sentence had burned in my mind ever since. So I decided, if they wanted to enjoy my life, I'd let them, just not in the way they expected. I began writing letters, quietly, one each night. Letters to my lawyer, to my bank, to a friend who owed me a favor. Everything precise, everything legal. If they thought they had taken everything, I would let the illusion last long enough for it to crumble on its own. I even smiled at the thought of it. Not out of malice, but because I realized something important. When people steal from you, they also steal their own peace. I wanted to teach my son that. Not with shouting, not with anger, but with reality, the kind of lesson life teaches only once, and never repeats. Over the next few days, I began to live differently. I went on walks, ate slowly, slept peacefully. For the first time in years, I felt free. Meanwhile, online, I kept watching. The photos changed. The smiles got tighter. The captions became shorter. Tired but happy. Long day but worth it. I knew that tone. That was the sound of joy turning into guilt. Of a man beginning to realize the price of his freedom. I didn't message him. Didn't block him. Didn't reach out at all. I just waited. Because patience, when used correctly, can be sharper than any knife. And I was done being the kind of father who saves his son from consequences. No, this time, I would let the world do it for me. I looked out the window that night, whispered to the darkness, let him live his paradise. Until paradise runs out. And deep down, I already knew. It wouldn't take long. Paradise never lasts. Not when it's built on lies. 2 weeks after that photo, the one where they were smiling under the blue sky, the smiles began to fade. It started small. A canceled dinner reservation. A delayed payment. A credit card that mysteriously stopped working. At first, they laughed it off. "It's fine," his wife said. "Your father probably just froze the account by accident." But I hadn't done a thing. The world was doing it for me. You see, paradise is expensive. And when you burn bridges behind you, there's no way back when the road ends. Their savings ran out fast, faster than they ever imagined. The hotel bill came due. The new car payments piled up. Friends stopped answering their calls. And the photos, they stopped coming. Instead of living their dream, they were now living in silence. Trapped in a foreign place, surrounded by the echo of everything they'd wasted. I didn't have to look for updates. The silence told me everything. People who used to post every moment of their perfect life don't just disappear without a reason. I pictured him sitting somewhere, eyes hollow, staring at the same phone that once delivered his victory, now showing only bills and regrets. I imagined his wife pacing, angry, tired, her voice sharp with blame. "You said your father had more. You said we'd be fine." And maybe that's when he finally realized the difference between love and loyalty. Because loyalty stays when money leaves. And love that depends on luxury was never love at all. One rainy afternoon, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered quietly. "Dad." His voice? Small, cracked, tired. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. For a moment, I didn't say anything. I let the silence stretch. Not out of cruelty, but because I wanted him to hear what silence feels like when you have no one left to fill it. Then, softly, I said, "You're still my son." He broke down. I could hear the tears, the guilt, the regret pouring through the phone. "We lost everything," he said. "Her mother left. She left. I don't even have enough for a bus home." I closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt both pain and peace. Because this wasn't punishment. It was understanding. He had taken everything I had, and now the world had taken everything he thought he needed. "Come home," I said quietly. "But understand this. When you walk through that door, you're not coming back as my thief. You're coming back as my son." That night, I sat by the window again. The rain fell harder this time, but somehow it felt clean. I poured myself a small glass of whiskey, raised it toward the storm, and whispered, "Sometimes, to rebuild a man, the universe has to let him shatter first." It was late afternoon when I heard the knock. 3 soft taps. Hesitant. The kind that belong to someone who isn't sure if they're welcome anymore. I opened the door. There he was. My son. He looked smaller. Not in size, but in spirit. His clothes were wrinkled. His eyes sunken. His shoulders heavy with something heavier than guilt. Shame. For a moment, we just stood there. No words. Just the sound of the rain behind him, and the quiet ache between us. Finally, he spoke. "Dad, I don't deserve to be here." I looked at him. Really looked. And in that moment, I didn't see the thief who took everything. I saw the boy who used to run into my arms after school, holding a drawing, saying, "Look, Dad, it's us." Time has a cruel way of stealing that version of people. But sometimes, if you wait long enough, it gives it back. I stepped aside. "Come in," I said quietly. He hesitated, then walked in. The house smelled the same. He told me later. Like old wood and coffee. The kind of smell that reminds you where you came from. I made tea. We sat at the same table he once emptied. The same table that had witnessed my heartbreak, my silence, my decision to forgive. He looked down at his hands and whispered, "I lost everything, Dad. The money, the car, her, all of it. I don't even know who I am anymore." I took a slow sip, then placed a small envelope on the table. He stared at it, confused. "What's this?" "A job offer," I said. "At my workshop. You start tomorrow." He blinked, stunned. "After everything I did? After one?" I interrupted softly. "Son, forgiveness isn't about forgetting what you did. It's about giving you the chance to become better than what you were." Tears filled his eyes. He didn't speak. Just reached across the table and held my hand like he used to when he was a child. For the first time in a long time, the silence between us didn't hurt. It healed. Months passed. He worked beside me every day. Quiet at first. Humble. Patient. He learned to rebuild not just furniture, but trust. One evening, as we were closing up the shop, he said, "Dad, I don't deserve how kind you've been." I smiled. "You're not supposed to deserve kindness, son. You're supposed to understand it." He nodded, eyes wet again. And that night, for the first time, I saw his old smile. Not the smile of pride, or victory, or wealth, but the simple smile of a man who's found his way home. People think revenge means hurting someone back. But I learned something else. Sometimes, the greatest revenge is watching someone you love finally learn the lesson you tried to teach them all along. Because pain fades, anger fades, but the lesson stays. My son once stole my savings. But in return, Life gave me something money could never buy. My son back. Time is a circle. It spins, it breaks, it mends. And one day, it brings everything back to where it began. My son came home when the wind changed. Not proud, not rich, just human again. And in his eyes, I saw the same boy I once carried on my shoulders. Looking for forgiveness in a world that rarely gives it, I learned something then. The heart of a father is not made of anger. It is made of earth. It breaks, but it grows again. I could have chosen rage. I could have chosen silence. Instead, I chose the river. To let him flow back to me. To cleanse what time had stained. Now he works beside me. We build things with our hands. Not for money, but for meaning. And every evening, when the sun sets behind the fields, I thank the Creator for giving me the strength to lose everything, just so I could gain what truly mattered. My son once stole my savings, but in return, life gave me something worth more than gold. A chance to love him right this time. And that, my friend, is how the river found its way home.